Hi there and welcome. I am so glad to have you with me today. We're going to talk about constitutional iridology and how it can help you cut your client appointment time while delivering faster, more precise results as and help you to be the go-to practitioner in your field. This is so important. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. We all have very busy lives, and I recognize the effort that it can take to prioritize a web class. Take a moment to grab a pen and paper to make notes. Research shows that you retain more when you write it by hand rather than keyboarding it in. And I'm also invite you to minimize distractions. This is going to be an interactive web class. The more you engage with me in the chat box, the more you'll get out of this. So let's start with finding the chat box and let me know if you have background in iridology. Like, have you studied Jensen or Morse or Andrews or Constitutional or something else? I'll give you just a minute to drop that in, and I will read those as they come in. Alrighty, let's get started. Thank you for that. What we're going to discuss today is what iridology is, particularly constitutional iridology, and how it works in a clinical setting and why it works, who benefits from you adding iridology to your skill set, from you doing iris assessments. We'll talk about the limitations of iridology as well, and how iridology can help you to stand out among your peers. That's really important. And how to become the go-to practitioner in your field, what the dynamic iridology assessment system course is. I will invite you towards the end of our time together to connect with me to talk about enrolling. And we will also do client case studies. Now, I don't like pressure. And so I'm not going to give you a time limited, you have to talk to me about enrolling within the next hour, or only people who fill out an inquiry form before the end of this time together will be considered for a discount or anything like that. I don't do that. This is a no pressure thing, and it's really designed to see if iridology is a good fit for you. So iridology is about understanding the constitution of a person. The constitution is determined by assessing the colors, the lay of the fiber, and the patterns we see in the iris, and understanding what they mean and what that teaches us about how the body is working together, what the genetic predispositions are here. Iridology is looking at the blueprint, the inherited blueprint, the epigenetics and genetics of a person. So iridology, constitutional iridology, will help us to understand that person's inherited blueprint so we can tailor the questions we need to ask them and the recommendations we want to make with precision and compassion. So drop a comment in the chat box. Is finding the root of a problem quickly and being able to define the best steps to restore health and the order in which they would be most important and most effective something that you think your clients would benefit from? Let me ask that again. Is finding the root quickly and being able to define the best steps to restore health and the order in which they will be most effective something that you think your clients would benefit from? Okay, so what happens when we don't have that depth of insight when we're working with our clients? And maybe this is you, maybe it's not. We often will make recommendations, right? We'll make recommendations. Maybe we've got nutrition training or herbal training, and we'll start making recommendations. These are things all of our clients have heard. Things like eat more leafy greens, increase your protein intake, drink more water, cut out the coffee, cut out busy beverages, get more sleep, reduce your stress, eat 3 meals every day, no junk food or fast food, reduce the stress. Oh, we've got that twice. It must be very important. And get 30 minutes of physical activity every day. But that is overwhelming, isn't it? We tend to give long lists of recommendations to clients. And it's what we were taught to do in school, right? It's what we've seen. Here's the problem: is it leads to overwhelm. Clients gets this long list of changes all at once, things that they're supposed to be doing. They feel defeated even before they start. We may even be able to recommend lab tests or send our clients back to their doctors for labs, but that leads to a delay. Lab tests can take days or weeks to get the results back. By the time the results come back, the client's enthusiasm has probably faded, and they're probably still feeling lost because they have nothing specific to work with. And that can lead to disconnect. You sense there's a deeper pattern, but you don't have the data yet to confirm it. And you may not want to move forward with recommendations until you are sure about what the next best step is. Now, that's not your fault. It's just that your tools are time bound and reactive more than they are immediate and proactive. Modern iridology, on the other hand, examines the iris of the eye for the base color, the fiber layout, color variations within the iris. The iris is genetically determined. That's why it's used for biometric scanning, right? The colors in the iris do not equal toxicity. Pigments are not earned, and they cannot be erased by cleansing. So when we talk about pigments, we mean these little freckles of color that we see in here, or even the wash of color that we see in here. Up-to-date iridologists also assess the blood vessels in the sclera, which are partially inherited and largely earned. So why do we use iridology? Well, it allows us to separate the inherent tendencies from imbalances caused by human error. That's important because our human error really equals habits that don't serve us well and include things like poor food choices, stress, lack of sleep, wrong types or amounts of exercise. Those are human errors. They can create deeper imbalances for us. We want to use iridology because we want to stimulate that client-directed conversation. We want to understand our clients' needs, their goals, their symptoms, and the root causes more completely and more quickly. It's been said that most doctors know what they are going to prescribe within just a few minutes of greeting the patient. Maybe they're just that good, or maybe not. And because of this, patients often don't feel heard. The conversations we have with our clients are critical. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that it's critical that we have conversations with our clients? Iridology helps us to understand how to best support the body using knowledge and skills that you've already got in herbology, nutrition, essential oils, lifestyle, body energy, emotions. Iridology can help you integrate the skills you already have more judiciously and precisely. It can help you cherry pick which of your existing skills would be most appropriate to use with this client. Now, I've got many tools to choose from: nutrition, herbology, essential oils, flower essences, EFT tapping, ionic foot baths, color therapy, and more. But every client doesn't need every tool that I have. Iridology helps me to prioritize what needs to be used and when. We also want to use iridology because it gives us insight as to some foods and supplements that may be most helpful and those that might be harmful. Iridology can give us clues as to the foods and supplements that would be the best to use. It can show us inherent strengths and challenges of organs and glands and tissues. And that's important because when we know that a body part is prone to being stressed, we can more easily offer the right kind of support. Iridology also shows us what tendencies have been passed down from the past 3 to 4 generations. And we need to know that because then we can ask questions to understand how the symptoms and inherited tendencies are linked. Tendencies include strengths as well as risks. Iridology can teach us about the inherent and dynamic balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Both of those are inherent and dynamic, and we need to be aware of those again to understand what we need to recommend as practitioners. Iridology also shows us potential insufficiencies in every body system. With iridology, we see those possible insufficiencies from everything from the digestive system to the nervous system to the respiratory system to the circulatory system. And iridology shows us the inherent tendencies towards the system being too acidic. Is it prone to having um, excess uric acid or other things like too much cholesterol? It shows us systemic risks for elevated things that we don't want to have elevated. If you knew that someone had a systemic risk of elevated uric acid or elevated cholesterol, how would that change how you work with that client in a preemptive fashion? Would there be some dietary work or some supplements you would want to recommend to help reduce or prevent problems further down the road? We need to remember that iridology is not diagnostic. It does not name disease. It does not give us the right to then prescribe remedies either. If we feel it is warranted, we can have test results as well. Now, I can't requisition tests, but I can certainly send my clients back to their medical doctors to get tests done. And often the doctors are willing to do those. If you live in a country where you have freestanding labs where clients can go in and requisition their own tests, that's a bonus to you. That makes it so much easier. But in all fairness, we need to remember here as well that there are some things that iridology cannot do. It cannot name current or past pathologies. So we cannot diagnose. This would be diagnosing. We cannot diagnose. The irides show us inherent tendencies, not disease names. We cannot use iridology to detect broken bones or past surgeries. You'll sometimes see markings that correspond to locations where the person has had a surgery or a broken bone. Those markings show us where the inherent risk was and is. So it can show you if there is an increased risk in that area, but it cannot show you historically that there's been a surgery or a broken bone. That inherent risk shows us where issues are more likely to occur. We also cannot determine blood pressure readings or cholesterol levels through assessing the eyes. We might see indications of increased risk of these things, but we don't see an absolute marker for that. Iridology can also not show us if arteries are blocked or hardened. We cannot diagnose hemorrhage, stroke, or heart attack, but we can see markings that suggest an inherent risk. We cannot use iridology to detect pregnancy, abortion, or miscarriage. We cannot use it to distinguish age, gender, or predict lifespan or impending time of death. I understand that eye doctors can see circulation changes in the retina when a woman is pregnant, but we are not looking at the retina. We are looking at the iris. We cannot diagnose the presence of a tumor, kidney stones, or gallstones, so we can't diagnose cancer from the eyes. We see inherent markings in the kidneys or gallbladder reaction fields. We might see active markers in the sclera that suggest a current increased risk, but we never diagnose based on what we see in the irides. When we see markings such as these, we always want to ask questions about personal and family history and refer the client for appropriate medical testing. Iridology is not new, right? And neither is it finished. What we knew 40 years ago is very different from what we know now because the research has continued. That has led to some challenges in the field of iridology. Some teachers and practitioners of iridology are holding on to old, disproved beliefs like we can diagnose absolute diseases and determine if someone has had surgery. That is a very false belief that we have dispensed with. Constitutional iridology has come a long way, and we know that it is an assessment tool. Here's how one of my students talked about her iridology journey as a naturopath. This is Sharon Bimrose. She came to me as a licensed naturopath. She'd already learned iridology in ND school, but instead of it saving her time and adding understanding about the client she was working with, it added hours of work and complicated creating treatment plans. That's how she was taught to do it. This is what she said. As a naturopath and herbalist, I've always used iridology in my practice. However, it was learning how to connect the iris findings in this course, so in dynamic iridology, that has made the biggest difference. This alone has eliminated the unpaid hours I used to spend prioritizing a treatment plan. Now, you may or may not know iridology yet. The point is, as we add skills to our toolbox to benefit our clients and ourselves, we sometimes create a problem. Sometimes those new tools actually complicate things. And when it does, it's not really a tool. Do you agree with me that if you've been taught something and you're using it, but it's making things harder, making things take longer, it's probably not a tool? Yeah. Have you ever taken a course not only to not use what you learned because it really added to your workload? I know I've done that. Or maybe you only use what you learned just part way because you weren't sure how to integrate it fully. How frustrating is that? To spend time and money and still not end up where you wanted to be. Let me know in the chat box if you work with clients currently. Watch for those comments to come in. What would you like to change a bit about the way your client appointments run? So let's do a quick assessment of your client sessions, a little introspection, if you will. These might be tough questions. Grab a pen and paper to write your answers down. And you're welcome to share your answers in the chat if you'd like to, because you're not alone in this journey. If you are not seeing clients, flip these questions around to how you envision your practice will function. Are you ready? Here's question 1. How long are your client appointments? And how many follow-up appointments do they come back for? Having repeat clients is the way to have a stable income as a health professional, and it's the way to nurture and support your clients to help them achieve their big health goals. One-off appointments will usually not help your clients get to where they want to go. Question number 2. Are you able to stay on time at least 90% of the time? And with that, are you seeing as many clients in a day as you would like to, as your income and your overhead expenses need you to see in order to be successful? Number 3, how do you conduct your intake? Is it a questionnaire or a conversation? If it's a questionnaire, how long is your questionnaire? I spoke with a nutritionist whose intake questionnaire was 20 pages long. For me, that's a turnoff. That's a no-fly zone. When I'm seeking health advice, I want to have a conversation with my practitioner. I don't want to spend time filling in forms. I believe that a good practitioner should be able to ask me the right questions and funnel it down to where we need to be. I start out with giving them a rundown of what I see the problem is. Then their job is to help me distill that down to what the root of the problem is, right? Number 4, how long does it take you to create a program for a client? Another nutritionist I spoke with told me it takes her 40 hours, that's 40 hours, to create each client program. So when you think about that, how much would you need to charge for that many hours of work to have a viable business and an income? How many people are willing to pay that much? How doable would that be for a family? Question number 5. How satisfied are you with the process? Do you feel like it needs to be tweaked? When I started out, my typical appointments were about 2 hours long, but I only charged for one. Then I would spend another couple of hours of my own time creating a detailed report to deliver to my client in the next appointment if the client kept the next appointment. Yeah, it wasn't a great business model. Here's what I learned. When appointments are too long, clients lose focus. When I spent time outside of my client appointments creating reports and programs, clients didn't appreciate it. They didn't know how many hours it was taking. So they didn't appreciate the value of what I was delivering to them. And that detailed appointment just led to overwhelm for them. Sorry, that detailed report led to overwhelm for them. I was sharing too much information, giving them too much. They didn't know what to do next. They didn't know what the first step was, second step was, third step. Even if I outlined it in steps, all they could see was everything that was in there, and it was more than they wanted. You've likely had situations like this where you have maybe overloaded your client, given them more than they could handle, and they got frustrated too. They came to you because they believed you could help them. But when you outlined that, even that first round of homework, the diet, the supplements, the lifestyle, they maybe got overwhelmed. You saw it in their face, that look of, I can't do all that. Maybe they tried to do it. Maybe they tried to put on a brave face and they said they'd do it, but their hope was dashed. Their spirit was broken and they fell off within the first few weeks, or maybe in the first week, or maybe even the first few days. And when that happens, they almost never come back for a second appointment because they feel like you wouldn't teach them to do this if it wasn't doable. And if they couldn't do it, then there must be something wrong with them and they failed. And nobody wants to admit failure. Maybe it's just the amount of dietary work they need to do. Maybe it was the amount of water you recommended they should drink, the half an ounce per pound of body weight. But maybe it's just the expense of the supplements and all the extra tests that you've asked for that they cannot manage. Have you noticed that overwhelmed clients drop off before they've even seen success or any progress at all? Sometimes they drop off before they even made the first change. Whatever the reason, it's frustrating for them and for you, right? Because you can help them get results and you know everything that needs to be done. Maybe you really want those lab tests to confirm what you figured out. You want to make sure you're getting it right. Well, what if you could see your client's inherent tendencies, their epigenetic strengths and weaknesses and stress points, and their current hotspots before you order tests and even before you start creating programs? That's what today is all about. Helping you triage your clients quickly and precisely to guide the what happens next. Ultimately, giving you a way to be unique, to stand out among your peers, whether you're an RN or an ND or a herbalist or nutritionist. Did I miss anyone? Iridology can help you see what no one else can with minimal effort and in a non-invasive way. Because what we want here is success for you and for your clients. The only way you get to be successful is if your clients are successful, right? And success means helping your clients get results in easy to achieve baby steps and helping you to get those baby steps programs developed in your paid client sessions without working unpaid overtime. That will inspire your clients to come back for follow-up appointments as needed until they achieve their health goals. When you are doing that confidently, you will stand out among the crowd. You will be it in your crowd. How many other RNs, NDs, herbalists, nutritionists do you know who practice constitutional iridology? Almost none, right? That means there is room for you. Here's the thing I know. I know many of you use hair mineral testing, saliva testing, poop tests, and such, and they are great, and they provide unique insights, right? and nearly every other health professional is using those tests too. I use them, but only after I've had a conversation with my client, have assessed his or her eyes, and have let those assessments help me decide which alternate lab tests to specifically work with, because tests are expensive and they typically take 3 to 4 weeks to get the results back. I want to start protocols right away, and I want them to be laser focused on what my client needs help with. Knowing and using iridology makes you unique in the holistic health world. It will help you assess your clients more quickly and accurately when you know how to do it and how to use it well. It can guide you in choosing which other lab tests to use, and will give you deeper insights to the root cause almost instantly by guiding the questions you ask. In this web class, I'm going to do all I promised a few slides back. I'm going to invite you to connect with me about enrolling in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for Health Professionals course. That's a long title, but don't worry. You can't enroll while we're in this web class because you and I need to have a one-on-one chat prior to you enrolling. You and I both want to make sure that this course is a good fit for you before you pay your tuition. How does that sound? Let me know in the chat. If you're new to me, let me introduce myself. I'm Judith Cobb. I've spent 45 plus years as a holistic health coach, and the last 40 years teaching health professionals like you, including RNs, NDs, herbalists, and nutritionists, the art and science of iridology. But over those years, I've done a huge pivot when it comes to iridology. Back then, the iridology I started with was based on outdated information, what we now know as outdated information. I was taught to give away my time, just like Sharon Bimrose, the naturopath we saw a few minutes earlier, was. Maybe just like you were taught to give your time away too. I would see the clients, gather information, take a look at their eyes, give them starting info, and just doing this would take 2 hours or more. But I would only charge for one because I was optimistically hoping to get it done in one, and because that's what I'd been taught to do. Then I'd go off and study their eye photos and write a detailed report and not charge for the time to write the report, only to deliver it in the next appointment if they came back. I was losing clients almost as fast as I was finding them. They'd come in for one, maybe 2 appointments, 1 month apart, then they would disappear. Every time I took another course, my appointments got longer because I had more information to share. Constitutional Iridology helped me sort through which parts of new trainings I needed to focus on for each client. The transformation happened when I learned how to use constitutional iridology and how to use it effectively in practice. And these are some of the credentials I've got that added more and more time to what I was doing. Constitutional iridology is an updated science. It's based largely on the research that has come from Germany, and now there are ongoing research studies underway right now. Back then, it was really quite miraculous. A complete and total upgrade applying constitutional iridology allowed me to start getting my client sessions done in about 60 to 75 minutes, including the intake, the iris assessment, and their beginning program recommendations. Clients felt heard and supported because we had time to talk about what they needed, and they left with information they could work with for the next month or so. But how did constitutional iridology impact my client work? Every one of my clients has iridology done in their sessions, whether they actually know to call it that or not. Michelle Eskdale comments on this and comments on how what I did with her, and of course iridology was included, turned her health around through supplements and a healthy plan. Her collagenous colitis caused all kinds of symptoms, the same as malnutrition, but I supported her and she's done very well. Pat and Jenny Shore, they've been clients of mine for decades, and Jenny loves everything that we do with her to help her keep her health in check, and she recommends the work that I do. Wonderful. Tamara Green has been with me from just about the very beginning, like 45 years. As she says, everything I've learned about health, herbs, nutritional healing started with my first visit with my two children 39 years ago, and this was written about 5 years ago. And again, she's talking about how I've listened and how I've supported her, and iridology has always been a part of what we've done together. Stephen Eng wrote in, he and his wife were trying to have a baby. And again, this is about 4 or 5 years ago. His wife had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and PCOS. The doctors only just gave them metformin and Clomid. When Stephen and his wife came to me, I did iridology with his wife. We figured out where we needed to work, what the root of the problem was without diagnosing anything. And we were able to help them conceive and have a beautiful baby boy. Again, iridology gave me a depth of understanding about why the type 2 diabetes and why the PCOS so that we could work on the root cause. But what about practitioners? Truth is, constitutional iridology is quite a narrow niche or niche, depending on where you live. There are not many of us practicing it. Even so, I've trained over 100 practitioners in the last 10 years. Here's just a handful of my certified grads from the past few years. And yes, I teach men too. They just don't enroll as often as women do. You'll notice all kinds of credentials here, from registered dental hygienist to bioregional herbalist, registered holistic nutritionist, medical doctor, naturopath, two different kinds of naturopaths. And so it's all here, right? There's room for you in our community. So what's involved with learning constitutional iridology? The way I teach it is this: 20 classes that are at least 2 hours long. Sometimes they run to 2.5 hours. These classes are held on a weekly basis, and they're recorded for playback on demand. In these classes, we cover the IPA mandated curriculum for level 1 and level 2. I put them together in one class, so you can't do just level 1 and then quit, right? You need to do them both in order to certify. We take 20 weeks to cover the curriculum. That is meant to give you time to study and learn and practice and begin integrating the information with what you already do, and to bring your practical application questions back to your next class. Twice each month, we have a live group mentoring session held over the internet. We call these office hours. This is a chance for you to bring your business building questions, the cases you're working on, challenges you're having, bring them into a coaching situation so I can support you, so other graduates can support you, so that you get your questions answered. I have ongoing student and alumni support in our private online community. This is open to you while you are in the course, but it's also open to you after you've graduated. Both of these are open to you even after you've graduated, even after you've certified. Your 200 plus page digital textbook and 45 pages of quick reference study notes are also included in this. We lovingly call these the cheat sheets, the study notes. But you don't buy a separate textbook, you just download the digital textbook, which is lovely because it's all hyperlinked. You find what you need in the table of contents, click on it, and away you go, especially if you're doing that on a tablet, right? I believe it works on computer as well. IPA requires a certain amount of mentoring and case studies to do in order to take their final exam to certify you. I provide you with the case studies so that I know what images you're using and I know what you're seeing. The mentoring and the practice exams that I include in your course are also a part of what you get. Most IPA instructors charge extra to mentor you for the exam. They charge extra to mark your case studies. I include that. And just as importantly for most of my students is the fact that my cohorts are only 10 students each. I do not take more than 10 students because I believe that if the group is much larger than that, you won't have the opportunity to ask all the questions you need in class. So why is certification important? Why do we need, oops, that flipped through too. Why do we need standards in iridology training. And why do we need certification? Well, let's do a comparison here. What does it mean when a used car is certified? Well, on cargurus.ca, the site said this: when a car is sold as certified pre-owned, the selling dealer follows a set of rules, usually set out by the automaker at the corporate level, to ensure that the vehicle meets a standard the brand is willing to back. As a result, certified pre-owned vehicles tend to be more expensive than their non-certified counterparts, while also typically coming with an automaker-supported warranty, a period of free roadside assistance, and other perks. These additional assurances can provide some peace of mind and add up to significant value relative to the typical used vehicle sale. So what does that have to do with iridology? The International Iridology Practitioners Association is the leading accrediting body for iridology in the world. IPA's mission is to increase and communicate knowledge concerning the art and science of iridology while promoting excellent international standards. So one of the prerequisites to certify with IPA is you have to have proof of a college-level anatomy and physiology course, which is one of the reasons that I focus on teaching registered nurses, naturopaths, massage therapists, dental hygienists, registered holistic nutritionists, people, and some herbalists who have that as well, people who've already got anatomy and physiology under their belt. After all, how can you coach someone specifically for their health if you don't have a solid understanding of the body? That's why we need the college level A&P course of at least 60 instructional hours and a grade of 80% or a B or higher. Now, if you are already a licensed health professional in RN, LMT, LPN, RDH, PT, EMT, FRN, you need only provide a copy of your current licensure as proof of your A&P. Again, after completing the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course and the required case studies and mentoring, you will have qualified to take the IPA certification exam if you've already got the A&P under your belt. We're going to touch on the standards I espouse in teaching iridology in a moment, but first, let's just talk for a minute. We're going to do case studies, and I want to know, which one do you think we should do? Should we do the lymphatic? Should we do the biliary? Or should we do the hematogenic? I want you to drop that in the chat box, and let's see which one you would like us to do. And while you're doing that, quick recap of what is included in the Dynamic Iridology course. 20 live classes, interactive, recorded for playback on demand. This again is covering all of the IPA level 1 and level 2 curriculum, which they say should take 35 hours. When I teach it, it takes 45 to 50 hours because we take time for classes and interaction. The time between classes is designed again to give you time to study, practice, apply, and come back to the next class with whatever questions you have. Of course, you have the recording for playback on demand. We have the live group mentoring twice each month for students and grads. You can come and just hang out with us, or you can come and ask questions about cases you're working on, the business of iridology, whatever you need support in, it's there. You're invited to join us for these while you are in the course, after you complete the course, while you are being mentored for certification, after certification. This is open to you for as long as I am teaching. This adds hours to your training and helps you hone your skills and clarify anything unusual you run across in your practice. We have a private student and alumni community online. Again, a place for you to post questions and images and get feedback on things, another line of support. You get your 200-page digital downloadable textbook, highly portable. I suggest putting the textbook on a tablet if you can, and you've got it with you all the time, as well as your cheat sheets, your 45 pages of digital quick reference guide. We just like to call them the cheat sheets. Again, download that, put it in your tablet. IPA certification mentoring. Most teachers charge extra for this. from your last class date, and for 10 months after that, I will include the mentoring as my gift to you. After that 10-month mark, you're going to have to purchase an extension. Most of my students are certifying within 5 months. It's very, very doable. I limit cohorts to no more than 10 students to make sure you get your personal attention. And you will have up to 6 invitations to have one-on-one meetings with me during the course and during the certification process, because I want to make sure that the course is meeting your needs and that you are getting what you need, that you're understanding the concepts and applying them really, really well. How does that sound? Is that the kind of support and learning environment that you'd appreciate? Let me know that in the chat box. The next cohort is starting on June 3rd. Class time will be at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time. And at this point in time, I am planning on teaching this one and one more cohort in September. And then I will be slowing down dramatically and going into semi-retirement from teaching. So that doesn't mean from support. I will still support my students. That's not a problem here, but from the actual teaching. So if you're thinking of hopping into one of these courses, we need to get you in very quickly. Remember, all the classes are recorded for playback on demand. So if you have to miss a class for something, or you've got another commitment during that time, not a problem. You can still enroll. You can still do the courses by recording and take care of all of the other prerequisites and join us for the other supports as needed. As you've seen, I've got a lot of ways to support my students, whether you can make it to class or not. Now, believe it or not, I've had some students who have had the nerve to book European holidays, or the one that got me was the 3-week Bali holiday after enrolling in the course. Not a problem, because here's the thing. You've got access to the course online. Do you want to join class from the beach? Go ahead. Get us on your tablet or on your laptop, or if you're on vacation in France and you're going to the Champs-Elysees, that's okay. If you can dial in or log in, you can join us for class or watch the recording, because you know what, life happens and something might get in the way of you attending class. That's not a problem. It's all recorded. I've got your back here. Again, enrollment is only through a one-to-one meeting with me. There's not a public enrollment page. I want to meet with you to make sure that we're a good fit and to make sure that the course is a good fit. I want to share with you some other testimonials that have been posted on the IPA website. So if you are thinking, okay, she shared a few, but who are these people really? We are going to look at these. Okay, there you go. So you should be seeing a black and white page with the IPA insignia at the top here. And so this is my little blurb. When you look under education, you'll see a list for where you can click on instructors. I'm in Canada. That doesn't matter. I still speak English, as you can see, right? So there's several of these. These are all my students, all my graduates that have certified at one time or another with me as their instructor. And they're all saying lovely things, which makes my heart so warm. Lots of positive comments. So you can go to iridologyassn.org if you want to actually read those. And why not? Why not go and see if it sounds like it's the course for you? Okay. So let's come back to our regular screen here. Let me move this over. This is what I need to see. There we go. Okay. So one of the questions that always comes up is, what about tuition? How much is tuition? I want you to remember these are Canadian dollars. If you are in the US, your dollar is worth more, so it's going to cost you less. It's going to look like it's costing you less in US dollars, and it will. Your credit card will automatically take care of the conversion. And your credit card will show approximately $3,300. The Canadian tuition is $4,500. You don't need to worry about converting it. Your credit card will, and it will show it to you on the statement. Or if you prefer a payment plan, 5 payments of $9.49 Canadian, which is roughly 700 US. These are monthly payments. Now, because the exchange rate for currency conversion does fluctuate, these are only approximates, but I always try to ballpark them a little higher than what I think they will be to account for the fact that your credit card will charge you a little bit for doing an international conversion transaction, right? So here we've got it. That's your tuition for all of the support for the course, for the downloadable textbooks, for the office hours, for the long-term support through the mentoring process, and even after that, right? So there you have it. Again, most teachers charge extra for mentoring. They charge extra to mark your case studies. I don't. It's included in the tuition. What you see here is what you will be charged. So enrollment is only through a one-on-one meeting with me where we can talk about your goals, your background, and the course. So if you are already a licensed medical professional and you've got the anatomy and physiology under your belt, you can use either the QR code here, the QR, is that a QR code? Yeah. Or this link to actually book that time. This is going to take you to a calendar, and that's going to allow you to schedule the time, the day and time, to meet with me one-on-one, where we can talk about you and the course. And is this a good thing to do? And if it is, then I will give you a link to enroll. And truly, about 60% of the people I speak with don't have the A and P, so they don't qualify, right? You've got to have the A and P. All right, so which one are we doing? Are we doing lymphatic, biliary, or hematogenic? Hey, why don't we do all three? How does that sound? You good with us doing all three? Okay, so when we do an iris assessment, we do not highlight every single marking we see. That is an absolute waste of time. You have to do that on the case studies when you're doing your mentoring, but on a clinical level, you do not ever do that. You always start out with your 3 levels of constitution, and then you cherry pick markings that give you information to help you understand the client's situation. Every marking is not about what the client wants help with right now. So what we've got here, we also want to be thinking about what we see here. We want to know the client's diet. We want to know their lifestyle. We want to know what they're doing for their health. We want to know what their concerns are. This is a gentleman. He has been to me many times over the past 10 or 12 years. And when we took these pictures, there had been a 6-year gap from his previous appointment. He's a male, 5 feet 11, 175 pounds. And at the point where we took these pictures, he was 64 years old. He'd been to the doctor. He had a hemoglobin A1C of 7.2. We need to get that down. It's got to be below 5.9. His glomerular filtration rate, so his kidney function, was 61. At 60, they start talking about stage 2 kidney disease. His potassium was slightly low. He was on a diuretic, so that could have been affecting things. At the doctor, he was diagnosed as being pre-diabetic, and they'd given him metformin, which gave him diarrhea. So they switched to Glumetza and Jardiance. He was also on hydrochlorothiazide, which is the diuretic for blood pressure. He was on Trandolapril for cholesterol. And all of these blood pressure stuff they were doing made it so that he could not perform sexually. And so he also had sildenafil or Viagra. He was also on Mylan torvastatin for his cholesterol. I also noted a lot of throat clearing, while we were together. And he did not even know he was doing it, totally subconscious. His diet was typically a cinnamon bun or a muffin for breakfast, or Cheerios. Have you looked at the ingredients in Cheerios? They're scary. For lunch, he would have a sandwich, typically white bread, lunch meat, or a tuna or egg salad filling. He typically drank 3 liters of water a day, which was good. So as we look at his eyes, We know that he is lymphatic. We know that he is neurogenic. And we know he's got a fairly good resilience. He has a slight corneal arcus. So we've got a slight bit of a white band on his eye, actually down here, and a little bit of it forming here, and a tiny bit of it here. So he's got a slight corneal arcus. That's not in the iris. And this suggests that there's been a long-standing imbalance with his cholesterol. He has a stomach ring, which suggests that there might be some issues with the way he digests food. His collarette is atonic, which means that even though he's having a couple of bowel movements per day, he likely has a very slow transit time. We also see that this is going to suggest then ultimately stresses on the liver. If the bowel's not moving fast enough, the body's reabsorbing metabolic waste. That puts a stress on the liver. He has some contraction furrows, which suggest that he internalizes his stress. He is a security guard, but not just a security guard. He's a security guard at an international federal institution here in Calgary. And he also has a business teaching security to people who want to be high level security guards, like doing security for like G7 and things like that. He has a tiny little pigment in his right eye, right here, right there. And there's a little bit of it here too, which suggests that he might have MTHFR, which means that we've got to get the B vitamins into him in the right format to support his liver. We also need to be considering that little bit of a lipemic diathesis or corneal arcus can also suggest that triglycerides might be out of balance and that he might be prone to blood sugar imbalances. Oh yeah, he's got a hemoglobin A1C. And we wanted to ask him, does he tend to be gassy? And if he is there an odor? And if there's an odor, what kind of an odor? Because that's going to tell us whether it's proteins or fats that he has problems proteins or carbs that he has problems digesting. So because this was a repeat visit, I'd seen him years ago and we'd gone over all of this. I still had the notes. We'd gone over all of this before when he didn't have cholesterol and blood pressure issues and triglyceride issues and hemoglobin A1C issues. And he hadn't done any of it. It was all just fun information for him, right? So we went back to the foundations, got him to do protein and veggies for breakfast, low carb veggies, snack on an apple with good quality nut butter. And then for lunch, I wanted him to have a large salad, lot of leafy greens in there, mixed leafy greens with real meat. So some real chicken or some real steak, real meat that he'd actually had to prep at home. Supper, we wanted more protein and veggies, and I suggested a stew, stir-fry, roasted veggies, grilled meat, portion control. Really important here for him as well. Also suggested that he needed to chew his food. Now, I gave him more homework than I would usually give in a first appointment because we had done all this before. And I was kind of giving him the little shake going, get it together, Buster. You know what to do. You just need me to beat you up a little bit here. Right? So we suggested then using some L-arginine, some berberine IR, and wanted to get him walking 2 times a day for 30 minutes each time because that's also really good for helping to correct blood sugars. In appointment number 2, we added some protein digestivate and some garden essence to work on his digestive abilities. And in that month, his blood pressure was starting to come down. His hemoglobin A1C was also starting to come down. He had it done just before he came in, and we were starting to see it reduce a little bit, which is great. In appointment 3, I suggested adding resistance training. Now, as a security guard, sometimes he'd have 1 week walking perimeter, easy to get his 2 30-minute walks in every day doing that. But on the weeks that he was on the computer monitors, just like you see on TV, he said, I'm in this room with all these monitors and I'm watching them to see what's going on. I asked him, could you get stretchy bands and do some resistance training while you're watching the monitors? He said he could. Over the course of 2 years of working with him, We got things organized really well, and he really locked it in for his nutrition and his lifestyle. And the doctor at the 2-year mark took him off the Jardiance and the Glumetza. His triglycerides were coming down, his blood pressure meds had been reduced, and his cholesterol meds had been reduced as well. So he made an effort and he got results. And the eyes are what guided us as to what needed to be done. Here is the biliary eye. This is a client who's been with me almost since the very beginning. She's one that we read a testimonial for earlier. And she's like all my clients. She comes and goes. She'll be in for a few months, regular appointments, and then she disappears for a few years, and then she's back and in and out. But she knows a lot about nutrition. She knows a lot about herbs. And so she knows a lot. This time when she came in, she wanted to lose some weight, postmenopausal, gaining weight. Her blood pressure was up, her cholesterol and triglycerides were up, her hemoglobin A1C was up, and the doctor wanted to get her on prescriptions for all of these, but she didn't want to do that. So she asked her doctor, can I do 3 months to get things moving in the right direction? The doctor said, absolutely. They can't force you to take the drugs, right? So she brought in her labs, and what we saw was that, yeah, everything was going in the wrong direction. Now, you might have heard that things like this and this and this are signs of toxicity. They are not. Those are inherited. They teach us about organs that inherently, genetically want to be out of balance and what kind of stress that organ wants to place on other organs. We can see again that she has that milky film. This is a much clearer version of the milky film. So we know that we can't erase that, but it tells us long-standing enzyme imbalance in the liver. Is that leading to fat deposits in the arteries, or is it leading to unbalanced blood sugars? Either way or both, we're not going to reverse what we see here, but we can support the body and reverse the symptoms. So again, because I've worked with her for many decades, I was able to dive in pretty deep. And because I know she knows a lot, I was able to dive in pretty deep. So we started constitutionally. This constitution is all about liver and digestion. And she has a sympathetic dominance, which means we're going to have elevated needs for certain vitamins and minerals. So in her first appointment, we got her going low carb, high protein with better fats and more fats. And we got her walking for 30 minutes a day. That's all we did. With her supplements, omega-3, berberine IR, we worked on her gut biome. We gave her some betaine hydrochloric acid or protein digestive aid. We did digestive enzymes with her, and we got her to have protein at breakfast. She lost 20 pounds in 3 months. And in 3 months, all her numbers came back into balance, which is brilliant. The doctor was so ecstatic. About a year later, there was some family stress, some significant family stress. She slipped off her program for several months, and she had a heart attack. Now, I believe that heart attacks almost always have a very strong emotional basis, and the family stress that they'd had tied in very closely with what German New Medicine teaches us about impact on heart. And so, fortunately, her husband recognized that this was probably a heart attack, knew it would be like 30 minutes to get an ambulance there, but they lived like 5 minutes from a major hospital. So he got her into the car and got her into the hospital where she could receive immediate treatment. Was on 9 medications when I saw her next, and afraid to death to come off any of them. Right. And so we have to work around that, and we have to work with food. So the family stress is, some of it's resolved, but not all of it. She's finding it really hard to get back on track. But what we are doing with her, like I said, is just gentle food work. She doesn't want to take supplements. We look up all of her meds every time she comes in to see what their interactions are, what nutrients they deplete, and what is safe to use alongside those medications, and how would we need to time it. And so we're working on that. And we're working towards getting her doctor to reduce her medications. We also really need to get her doing the emotional work to let go of the traumas, right? Oops. And then we have our hematogenic eye. Old iridology would say this person is under a lot of stress and is headed towards a nervous breakdown, and this person has a lot of parasites. We know that is not true. Everything we see in the iris, with the possible exception of that arcus, that white, the bit of a white film we see here, is absolutely genetic. And even this has some genetic roots for most people, right? So we need to look at this eye in the context of who this woman is. This is the eye of an Asian woman in her mid-30s, and she and her husband wanted to have a baby but had not been able to conceive. What I noted was the contraction furrows, and that suggests to me that she internalizes her stress. What I also noted was a teeny tiny little pigment sitting right here at, what is that, about 56 minutes? And that is telling us that she likely has MTHFR. I can't diagnose that out loud, but I can suspect that she has it. That means I need to get the B vitamins to her in the right format in order for them to actually work for her. And of course, I needed to get folic acid into her, but it had to be the right format. I suspected from this bit of a lipemic diathesis that we had some liver involvement, which again goes hand in hand with everything we're seeing here. So I asked her if she'd been diagnosed as type 2 diabetes, because that's what I feel like I'm seeing in this eye from just everything that's together. That's from years of experience. And she said yes. The doctors had given her that. And then I asked, what about PCOS? And she said yes. So we've got lots of indicators here talking about the risks of why she would be infertile. Now, okay, so the doctor had already diagnosed her with that. She'd also had the Clomid and the metformin, but they weren't working. They weren't giving this couple the results they wanted. And so we needed to dive in a whole lot deeper and get her the right B vitamins and get her on the right herbal program to help her out, right? And so we knew we needed to do omega-3s. We knew we needed to clean up her diet a lot. She had no diet recommendations from the doctor at all. She's Asian. They eat a lot of white rice. You ever seen what that does to blood sugars? Right? So we had to do a lot of work with diet and with lifestyle. She was not physically active at all. Petite little thing, not overweight at all, but also not physically active. So we looked at things like placement of radial furrows. And what we saw in the placement of the radial furrows is, she's got a big radial furrow coming down through one ovary and another one coming down the other side in the other ovaries. So we knew the ovaries were going to be stress points, that they were going to need to be supported. And we knew we needed to get more protein, more digestive support into her. We needed to get the omegas in. We needed to help the liver be happy with dietary choices. We needed to get her being physically active and drinking enough plain water. That was a bit of an experience to get her to do that as well. But we were successful. She was able to conceive. It took a while to get everything balanced around, but we were able to get her to a point where she was able to conceive and had a very healthy baby boy without developing gestational diabetes. And again, it was just looking at the eye and noting the indicators that we needed to pay attention to that gave us information about what she wanted help with. I didn't need to map every single radial furrow or every single contraction furrow. I just needed to know the ones that would have an impact or information about what we were working with for her. All righty, so there we have it. That is how quick and easy. Did you see how quick and easy that was? When you understand the eyes and the markings, and when you understand the body and how body parts work together, you can do an iris analysis in 5 to 10 minutes. Create the program very quickly. It leaves you the bulk of your session to get to know your client on a very deep level personally, so that you can make the recommendations that are going to work for them. So important. So again, here is the invitation. If you would like to speak with me one-on-one about the course, get a tour of what is in the site, in what you have access to in your student site, the learning materials and so on, grab that link or shoot that QR code, schedule a time, and let's talk. I look forward to speaking with you soon and having you in the class. Bye for now.